How's it going, beautiful people? Ben here, and today on this episode of Know Your Stuff, we're going to be going over why are there so few internet providers, broadband internet providers in the US. Now, the reason why I wanted to cover this topic is because net neutrality has just been repealed and it has a lot of controversy associated with it. I'm not going to get too political in this video, although I do have my personal opinions on the matter. But one of the biggest things against net neutrality was the fact that although the chairman of the FCC, Mr. Ajit Pai, says that it stimulates competition among ISPs, the fact of the matter is that there aren't many ISPs out there to compete with. I'm actually going to use the FCC's own data to show you how few there are in the US. As you can see, according to the FCC itself, 67% of people in the US have access to two or less ISP companies. ISP, of course, stands for Internet Service Provider, and only 33% have more than three or more options. So you can already tell that there's not many to choose from. You either have one or another, and if you're really unlucky, which is about a third of the US, you can only pick one. So technically these companies have monopolies. So with the introduction of the repeal of net neutrality, why aren't there more companies coming out and saying, we're going to start an ISP company, we're going to increase competition, we're going to foster growth? Of course, one of the biggest tenets of capitalism is that we consumers benefit from competition because it lowers prices, increases supply, and we have a lot of choice. So why is it that we don't have much choice when it comes to our internet provider? Well, I'm here to tell you that the fact of the matter is because of money. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. So let's talk about history for a second. Before internet was actually a thing, the main sources of communication we actually had were through either radio or telephone, and most people had a landline telephone service. So there were these big companies that basically created wiring underneath down to connect telephone landlines across households in the United States, and some of them were Cox Communications, Comcast, and cable also, and AT&T. Now these companies already had a very big framework of cables underneath the ground. They have been around forever. So when internet was introduced to our society, they were like, okay, we'll just use the old cable systems we have and expand upon it so we can give people access to the internet that way. And not to put it lightly, these companies over time have accrued millions upon millions, even $1 billion of wealth that they have over them so they can use as leverage. Unfortunately, for newer companies who actually want to start ISPs, they have to actually start from the ground up. They have to make all the cables, they have to create all the cable linings, they have to plan out, and also they have to go through a myriad of permits and regulations that cost millions upon millions of dollars. And we see this with Google Fiber, which is one of the biggest companies out there that's actually trying to create a new ISP. But even then, they're having such a hard time. They've only expanded in certain major metropolitan cities, and it'll take decades, maybe even a century, to go throughout the whole United States. And even Google itself is a huge multi-million billion-dollar company, so they have the assets to do this. They have the assets to expand, and they themselves see that increasing internet service to cities is actually a benefit to them. Unfortunately, if you're the little guy, you're not as big as Google, you're gonna have to go through a lot of red tape to get to where you want to be. And remember, the more established companies out there, well, they actually make it incredibly hard for the smaller guys to actually have a place in the system, because they hit them with lawsuits saying that they are not going by regulations, they're infringing upon other people's rights. So ISPs have to not only worry about their own monetary expenditure, they also have to be worried about getting lawsuits that they have to spend hundreds and thousands of dollars to cover themselves. So in the eyes of many entrepreneurs and people who want to start ISPs, it's not really worth it to invest in a company that's so high risk. And finally, the biggest setback to ever increasing ISP companies is the federal government itself. And now I'm not going to paint them in a bad light, but sometimes different districts in the federal government, different areas and geographical regions, they have something called government-funded monopolies. Now, this isn't universal or anything like that, but sometimes the government sees, digging up new lines as kind of an unnecessary expense. I mean, like, not only will the companies be spending a lot of money doing this, but usually you need some form of government grants or even like government permission to do the digging and creating the lines. But according to the local government, it's too much of a hassle to go through. So what they have is that they designate either 2 or 3 or 1 company in the area to basically handle all the dealings of internet itself in that specific area. Now, this isn't really new or anything like that. A lot of electrical and utility companies are like this. I mean, like where I live, we have Gas South and some Jackson EMC and some other electrical companies out there that basically covers the electrical system for all the houses in my county in Georgia. And the same goes for water, gas, or anything like that. So at that point, you're thinking, well, doesn't that mean the internet is kind of a utility? Yes, that could be true, but it's up for great debate right now. But yeah, that's another thing. So there you have it, you guys. Starting a new ISP in the US is incredibly difficult. You're gonna have to be either a millionaire or have some sort of, you either have to win the lottery, you're gonna have to make the deals, you're gonna have to talk to people to actually get started, and spend lots of money before it even becomes profitable. Because think about it, once you get it started, let's say you spend billions upon millions and billions of dollars starting the whole network, then you're gonna have to start getting people into your network, and that's another big hurdle to get through. So you're thinking about maybe like even 5 to 10 years of no profit before you actually start making any money. So, does net neutrality work? We're going to have to see, and unfortunately, we can't combat it that easily with creating new ISPs. So what can we do? Well, if you are against it, you can talk to your local governmental official, call them, protest, do whatever you can to get rid of the repealing of the Net Neutrality Act. But please be hopeful, and hopefully we won't see the internet burn down. This is Ben. Love you guys.